All right, guys, so we have a story here that honestly is a red alert story. It's a 5-alarm fire, but people aren't talking about it like that's the case because I don't think they fully understand what's going on here. But I'm going to break it down for you, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what's going on. So this is what we learned from Axios. What to know about civil commitment, Trump's new policy for homelessness. Now, before I continue, let me just say, what we're looking at here is Donald Trump wanting to put the mentally ill and the homeless into concentration camps. That's what he wants to do. That's what he's trying to do. Here we go. President Trump's new executive order to combat homelessness encourages local governments to revive civil commitment, a process to place people with mental health issues in treatment facilities without their consent. Involuntary civil commitment has historically been used as a preventative method to confine people before they harm themselves or others, and most frequently affects vulnerable groups such as LGBTQ plus people of color and people with disabilities, according to several studies. So let me just point out real quick here. In modern days, this civil commitment thing has only been used if somebody is a harm to themselves or others. So like they're about to harm or have harmed themselves or others. In a scenario like that, that's when you get involuntary commitment, basically, right? Trump wants to roll that back to anybody we deem to be homeless, anybody we deem to be mentally ill. And as they lay out here, well, who's often in those predicaments? LGBTQ people, people of color, people with disabilities. You're opening up the door for a lot of people to get thrown into these camps, aren't you? The order Trump signed Thursday calls for shifting homeless individuals into long-term institutions for humane treatment, which the administration says will restore public order. The order directs officials to determine if federal resources can be used to ensure that those with serious mental illness are not released back into the public solely because government facilities lack enough beds to hold them. The order also requires the Justice Department to evaluate homeless people arrested for federal crimes to determine if they are sexually dangerous persons. Critics say the order won't help people afford homes and that previous attempts at mass institutionalization frequently violated 14th Amendment due process rights. Well, that's the thing. They don't much care for rights now, do they? As we've seen with what they're doing with Alligator Alcatraz, what they're doing with Guantanamo Bay, what they're doing with CCOT. We know that they don't care about due process. They don't care about habeas corpus. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about having trials. And that's why this is so terrifying. They say these executive orders ignore decades of evidence-based housing and support services in practice. Donald Whitehead Jr., executive director of the National Coalition for the Homeless, said in a statement. He added that the orders represent a punitive approach that has consistently failed to resolve homelessness and instead exacerbates the challenges faced by vulnerable individuals. So that's the thing, right? Is like when you look at homelessness, there's this idea that like all of them are addicted to drugs, for example, or all of them have severe mental illness, for example. When that's not true, the reality is so many people who are homeless literally just don't have money. Like it's that simple. Hey, I don't have money. I lost my job. I can't pay the bills. I'm homeless now. Do you want police officers, going through the streets, just rounding up people who they think don't look socially well-adjusted enough? So they'll just declare that you're homeless or they'll declare that you're mentally ill. And also, by the way, let's remember, ICE just got access to everybody's Medicaid records. Trump is building this massive database, this like massive Palantir database, which is like a spying blackmail database that tries to collect hundreds of data points on each individual. And, what percentage of the population is taking SSRIs, for example, antidepressants? What percentage is on anti-anxiety medication? What percentage has ever used any of those drugs? And they could just classify you as mentally ill. And then they could do whatever they want with you, according to this executive order. Do you see the massive slippery slope that we're on here? Remember, there was some state house where some Republican was trying to get Trump derangement syndrome officially categorized as a mental illness. So is that really what we're doing here? Like, oh, if you disagree with Trump, sorry, you're going to get locked up and we're going to throw away the key. You're going to get sent to this, you're going to be institutionalized in this camp. Involuntary civil commitment is the process in which a judge or someone else acting in judicial capacity orders a person to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital or supervised outpatient treatment facility without their consent. The specific criteria that a person needs to exhibit to be confined varies in every state, but the guidelines usually mention those with mental illness, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse issues that pose a danger to themselves or others. Modern-day commitment proceedings have to follow due process laws under state and federal law. How was civil commitment previously used? Before the late 1960s, people with mental health issues were often thrown into jails for vagrancy alongside criminals, according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. The standards that states had to follow to commit someone had little legal oversight. Since then, there's been a push to orient facilities toward mental health treatment rather than incarceration. More than 500,000 people were committed to mental health treatment facilities in the 1950s, according to a 2010 study. The number fell to 30,000 by the 1990s with a shift in focus on treatment. The Supreme Court has also stepped in to define the boundaries of civil commitment. In a case out of Florida in 1975, the court ruled that an individual must pose a danger to themselves or to others to be held against their will. That's what we talked about earlier. And that's a standard that makes sense to me, right? If you're a danger to yourself or a danger to others, and there's evidence of that, then we get it. Everybody gets it. Involuntary commitment kind of makes sense. But if you're talking about leave it up to the whim of a police officer in question or a politician in question and who they determine is not acceptable, that is not okay. The court ruled in a separate case in 1979 that a clear and convincing standard of proof is necessary for involuntary commitment. They go on to say the following: the American Psychiatric Association classified homosexuality as a mental disorder until 1973, making it easy for states to send LGBTQ people to institutions because of their sexuality. Having a mental abnormality is typically a requirement for admission to a facility, according to the Prison Policy Initiative, which researches the effects of mass incarceration. The group argues that having a definition that broad would imply that all people who are civilly committed are disabled, which made it hard to accurately determine the number of disabled people in a population. Patients of color are more likely than white patients to be committed to involuntary psychiatric hospitalization, according to a 2022 report. Black patients and those who identified as multiracial were still more vulnerable even after factoring confounding variables. So in other words, look, what they're saying here is there is no objective standard. There is no objective criteria. This is oftentimes used to go after social undesirables. And the other point is the Trump regime is currently cutting funding for all of these sorts of programs. So you cut funding for sort of mental health support while at the same time saying we're going to send massive numbers of people to these concentration camps for people who are homeless and mentally ill. Well, this is a catastrophe waiting to happen, y'all, because the standards they're going to use are going to be super fucking loose. They're not going to fund actual treatment, and Lord only knows, no concern for due process, no concern for habeas corpus, no concern for oversight. This can get ugly, and it can get ugly quick. And the people that they determine to have mental problems, I wouldn't go by their standards, because if you ask me, it's Trump who has mental problems, right? It's the MAGA far-right idiots and losers, the ones who are still defending Jeffrey Epstein and his pedophile blackmail sex ring, right? They're the ones who have mental illness. But no, they're going to flip it on everybody else. And you could have people who are on antidepressants. You could have people who are left-leaning and very Trump-critical. You can have people who recreationally use drugs. You can have people that, like, for any reason they can possibly think of, I fear that they'll round people up and send them to these camps if they simply don't like them. That's what I think. And as we talked about, at the same time, 17 million people just got kicked off of their Medicaid. You're destroying the social safety net. Unemployment is rising. You're creating a catastrophe economically, which is going to lead to more people losing their income, more people losing the roof over their heads, and then you'll turn around and potentially round these people up and throw them in camps. This has horror show written all over it, y'all. Absolutely, positively, all over it. Now, so here's somebody who's TikToking on this, and they lay it out in a very clear way. Let's listen.
Trump's latest executive order should scare everybody. His new executive order makes it legal to be institutionalized if you are determined to be mentally ill. And unsurprisingly, that is such a broad term that could apply to just about everyone. Remember how just recently there was a bill put forth to validate Trump derangement syndrome? Unsurprisingly, queer and trans people should be concerned.
It's a great point about trans people in particular, because as we know, there's a war on trans people in this country now, where you have all these red states trying to make it illegal to be trans. In Texas, they brought up a bill where they said, if you're trans and you get your name changed on your driver's license, you just committed fraud, and it's a felony, and you should go to prison. So they always start with, oh, no, we're just trying to protect the children. But then they expand it, and it's mission creep. And eventually it's, no, actually, we want to ban just being trans. And is that what we want? Do we want fucking MAGA thugs, MAGA ICE Gestapo thugs, rounding up trans people and sending them to camps? Because that's where we're heading, y'all. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but look, we've already seen the concentration camps when it comes to immigrants. So is it really hyperbolic if we've seen with our own eyes? Alligator Alcatraz, innocent people being sent there, people being rounded up outside of their own immigration court hearings. Guantanamo Bay, CCOT, the concentration camp. We've already seen this stuff. So it actually shouldn't surprise you that this is now on the table.
This administration has made it abundantly clear that they feel that trans people are mentally ill. So under this new executive order, if trans people are determined to be mentally ill, they can be forcibly institutionalized. And this is what we warned everybody about by reading Project 2025. We knew this was coming, and now it's here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, people, they really weren't able to wrap their minds around just how extreme this regime was going to be. And now everybody's seeing it in real time, and they're going, holy shit, what the fuck is going on? You invaded Los Angeles? You federalized the California National Guard? You're sending people to concentration camps? You're launching a trade war with the rest of the world? You bombed Iran for no fucking reason whatsoever? What are you talking about? What are we doing here? You're arresting judges? You're arresting Democratic politicians? What? What is this? And now you're seeing it. So whatever the news is, always understand that the worst possible interpretation of what they're trying to do, that's what they're actually going to do. So keep that in mind. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.